Hey everybody, Steve Przebrowski. Welcome to tip 55 in the series 101 tips to ace your promotional exam. As a reminder, my website, code3firetrain.com, is a free stuff link with lots of great free information on there to help you or anybody else that you're mentoring, assisting, or just hanging out with. And this series is based on my latest book from Fire Engine Books and Videos, available off their website as well as mine. So let's get into tip 55 here. One of the best things you can do, and again, it's not about preparing for the promotion as much as preparing for the position, is be open to different assignments that may arise within your fire department. Now, I know, think about back when you got hired, like myself and most of us, we got on the job not to become usually fire chiefs. Most people don't get hired as firefighters to ever be a fire chief. I get it. It's usually about helping others, but that's true. But be honest, badge on the table. It's having friggin' fun, right? Having fun with your buddies, hanging out, chilling, 10 days a month, decent pay and benefits in most departments, hanging out with your buddies. I know I said that once. Oh yeah, fighting fires, saving lives, running calls, doing all the fun shit, right? That's why we got into the job. That's what makes it fun. Well, promoting maybe to company officer, you're still in the firehouse, you're still with the crew, you have a little bit more responsibility now because you got a badge and you got the supervisory position. So you got to maybe change your act. Hopefully not. Hopefully you're still the same and you don't have to change because you do always do the right thing as a firefighter. But my point is that if you ever have a desire to promote to company officer, but especially a chief officer, even if it's just BC, battalion chief, whatever your shift commander is, be open to different assignments. And again, this is even for fire officers. And I'll give you some examples of different assignments that may arise. And again, you may look at some of these, go, oh, F that, I am not doing that. Just like the first one, 40-hour a week. Oh shit, I don't want to do that one, chief. Versus your comfortable shift schedule, meaning you're at the firehouse. I think for those individuals, that the average individual that is aspiring to be a company officer or maybe even a chief officer, I think if life was perfect in their world, they would never have to leave the firehouse. They would always hang out with the crews they enjoyed hanging out with, because hey, that's about, the job is about the crew, not the station, not the ship. It's about the people you work with. We don't always get to pick those people, but it's what the job's about. I mean, come on, no one got on the job to drive a desk as a chief officer does, driving the desk versus, responding in a rig with your buddies. I get it, but there's a lot of benefits. The 40-hour work week, not every department has 40-hour positions. Well, if you have a fire chief, it's a 40-hour on paper, or if you have maybe assistant or deputy chiefs or division chiefs, usually those are 40-hour administrative positions. And I say on paper because if you've never worked a 40-hour schedule, don't talk shit about the people that do those positions, because trust me, most departments, they're not a 40-hour position. They may be on paper Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, but there's usually the expectation that you carry your phone with you and you pick it up after hours, or you may have to respond to incidents after hours. So trust me, most 40-hour people, I know there's exceptions, work probably more than shift people do. I mean, a shift schedule is usually 56 hours if you got 3 platoons, or maybe 52 hours or 48 hours, whatever your 3 platoon or 4 platoon or 2 platoon schedule is, but usually say 56 hours average. When I worked a 40-hour week as deputy chief of training, deputy chief operations, deputy chief of admin, or even as a 40-hour battalion chief when I was the EMS coordinator, I put in more than 56 hours a week, not just physically there, but also off duty. There's shit that needs to get done. And I know a lot of people used to try to, I guess, throw me a bone and, hey, chief, shit, you don't have to respond to this email on a Saturday. Or, well, you know what? I do, because why? I'm here to take care of you guys. I could check out at 5 o'clock and not respond to emails or phone calls, but who are the emails, phone calls usually helping take care of? It's usually the crews. So if I'm truly there as a chief to support the people in the field, I need to make myself available. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some things that honestly, when I look at the emails or the text, like, okay, that can wait till Monday morning. It's not code 3 high priority. But unfortunately, there's things that are sometimes. So again, if you want to learn more about the department, you want to serve your coworkers better, your crew members better, take a 40-hour assignment. You're also going to learn so much about the department in so many ways, the good, the bad, the ugly. 40-hour assignments. Now, again, larger departments, usually have 40-hour assignments all the way down to maybe firefighter rank. Like in my department, we've got about 330 personnel. You know, the fire chief works a 40-hour week on paper. The assistant chief, second in command, 40-hour week. The four deputy chiefs work 40-hour weeks. Battalion chief, though, we have 9 shift battalion chiefs, 3 on each shift, but we also have 3 40-hour BCs, one assigned to the training division, one assigned to the admin and planning division, and one assigned to the operations division, 40-hour, and they each support their respective deputy chief that oversees those divisions. We also have about 70 fire captains. The majority of them are in the field supervising engines and trucks, rescues, and hazmats. But we also have a 40-hour captain in the training division that works for the battalion chief in training. We also have a 40-hour captain in the operations division that works for the operations battalion chief and deputy chief. We also have a couple firefighter positions in the office. We have a firefighter engineer assigned to the EMS division. They're a paramedic. We also have a 40-hour firefighter assigned to the training division. These are all staff positions that are there to support the field members. Yeah, I get it. The field is what handles the lion's share, if not all not lion's share. The field handles all the 911 calls when people call 911 or knock at the firehouse door. But for those firehouses and crew members to properly do their job and get supported, they need support from 40-hour folks. So the 40-hour folks, if you want to learn, like I said, a lot about the department, yeah, I know it's not what you signed up to do is 40-hour desk jockey work, but depending on your department, there's a lot of field things that you can do to help support your crews and learn more about the department, but also act at the higher level. Because like I mentioned, in the training division, I had a firefighter who was a firefighter by rank, but he functioned as a captain many days. I had a captain, and that captain functioned like a battalion chief many days. I have a battalion chief, that person functioned like a deputy. Why? Because sometimes if I'm on vacation, that person's functioning in my ability, or maybe I'm busy doing one thing and I need to send the captain or the BC to handle something else. So you really learn a lot about the department. You get to really use your leadership skills, and you get to just really interact at such a different level. So 40-hour assignments, again, I know they may not be cool, sexy, and exciting and not what you signed up to do, but if you have a desire to promote, jump on one. I mean, we had a group of our captains and battalion chiefs were quizzing our command staff about 2 years ago because the fire chief was trying to sell some 40-hour vacancies, because in our department, even with 70 captains, when the one of the 2 40-hour positions comes up, ain't nobody jumping at that, oh yeah, I want to be that. Yeah, it's mostly people are like, keeping their hands down and like, no, chief, I'm happy at station 1 in the B shift. No, chief, I'm happy at station 3 in the C shift, hoping I don't get selected. Because usually what happens is when that position is open, it's a 2-year assignment, and maybe the person has promoted to a higher position or vacated to retire due to retirement, or they've gone back to the firehouse shift schedule. Every so often, every year or two, when one of those 40-hour assignments comes up, usually everyone's like looking the other way, hoping they're not selected. Well, so we sometimes usually get 1 volunteer if we're lucky, and sometimes we get no volunteers, and we have to force the junior person in. That's what the union and the management agreed to. That's just the way it works. But again, I'm beating a dead horse here. There's a lot to learn. If you talk to most people that have done firefighters, captains, or even BCs that have done 40-hour time, they're going to usually say at the end of their time going, man, you know what? I didn't know what I didn't know. I actually learned a lot. The people in there were actually pretty good to work with. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Yeah, because guess what? Guess who all the 40-hour people usually came from, or where they came from? The firehouses. I mean, you're most likely your fire chief, assistant deputies have all done their time in the firehouses over the years, most of the time, most of the people. So it's a good environment. Again, it's not for everyone, but again, if you want to learn more and promote, it's something that's, I think, valuable experience, because you will get out of your comfort zone. And that's why I say it's easy to say, well, you know what? I'll stay in my comfort zone. But some of the best assignments I've ever had, I was uncomfortable at first. And I'm not saying I was ever 100% comfortable, but it was enough to say, you know what, that got me out of my comfort zone. Just like when the fire chief, when I was a shift battalion chief of a few years, I think I was a shift battalion chief for like 5 years, and there was a deputy chief vacancy coming up, 40-hour training deputy chief, because the chief was getting promoted to fire chief. And I remember I was like, you know what? This would be perfect. I want to be the next deputy chief of training. I've done BC for 5 years now in the field, and I want to take the next step. And I remember the fire chief at the time, who was retiring, and he was the one that the vacancy was going to be created for. And I remember the fire chief, there was a vacancy in our 40-hour BC position that managed EMS. And the chief pulled at the time we had 9 shift battalion chiefs and then 1 40-hour EMS BC. And I remember the fire chief, because there was a 40-hour EMS BC vacancy, goes to the 9 BCs, which I was one of in the field at the time, goes, hey, who wants to step up and take the 40-hour EMS spot? And of course, all of us are like doing this, hope he doesn't pick me. And the chief could have selected anybody. I mean, that he had the right to do that. And it had nothing to do with seniority. It's just in our department at the time, the BC was a management position where you could be moved wherever the chief wants you to be moved. I mean, that's the way it worked. Well, the chief, when I started looking around the room with the other 8 battalion chiefs, something started settling into my stomach. And I'm like, oh shit, this is probably going to be me, because the majority of them had already done time as the BC and EMS. So, or they're getting ready to retire or scheduled to retire. And I'm going, you know what? I think it's probably going to be my turn. Not that I didn't want to do it. I knew I'd learn a lot. But I also looked at it, well, I'd already done 40-hour time as a captain for a little while as a training captain. I did some 40-hour time as an operations staff battalion chief. So I'd already done some experience. So I remember the fire chief, hey, Priz, yes, chief, is there anything, and he was being tactful and respectful and not being a jerk, but anything that's keeping you from putting in for that 40-hour EMS BC position? And I'm like, oh shit. I go, well, chief, I'm pretty comfortable in my battalion chief assignment. You know, when you retire, which you were scheduled to retire, there's no secret there. I go, my hope was to take the training deputy chief spot because that's where the vacancy was going to be. I go, so my hope in the next 4 months is to get promoted to deputy chief of training. So, well, of course, he's like, okay, is there anything precluding you from jumping in there right now for this vacancy? You'll learn a shitload. I go, well, I'm already a paramedic. I think I know a lot about EMS, right? But you'll learn more, not just about EMS, but about program management, about leadership, and it'll be a great grooming spot for deputy chief. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay, boss, when do you want me to start? Good answer, Priz. Because again, I didn't want to shoot myself in the foot for future deputy chief positions, because yeah, I would have shot myself in the foot if I wasn't a good team player. So I went in there for 6 months, thankfully got promoted to deputy chief of training. But here's the point, and that's 6 months of being an EMS coordinator, 40-hour battalion chief, even as a paramedic, who I guess thought I knew it all, or I knew most of it all, I realized, holy shit, there's a lot of stuff I did not know. And I learned so much more about leadership, budgeting, program management, that when I made that step to deputy chief, it was a lot smoother, because that's where a lot of captains or battalion chiefs struggle when they get promoted to those 40-hour deputy assistant division fire chief positions. If they've never done the 40-hour time that usually involves time management, planning, organization, budgeting, politics, people skills, all those soft skills I've touched on, and I will talk about in a future tip, they struggle the most because they've never been exposed. I mean, they got the field stuff down, they got the firehouse stuff down, but as a 40-hour chief, you ain't running calls. I mean, you can go to the big instance, you can go to any call you want to, but you're dealing with a whole different level, apples and oranges. But get out of your comfort zone. Something else, let your desire be known, or create your own position. Create your own position. It's not just about stepping into 40-hour assignments. But when I say get involved, it's also getting involved by managing programs or assisting with programs or projects, or, projects and programs are two different things, but maybe your passion is something involved with, let's say, water rescue. Maybe you can be that one that is the catalyst for starting or creating the water rescue team. I mean, you know what? Hey, who knows? So that, find what your passion is, but don't always expect to have your passion be accepted, because maybe there's not a need for a water rescue program. I'm not saying it's not important, but it may not be the highest priority. So that's why maybe find that priority that is a priority that will get supported, that you can maybe find your way, versus just being someone that shows up to work 8 to 8 out the gate. But back to let your desire be known. I mentioned we had an operations captain position, and I'm thankful for that, because that's how I got promoted to captain. When I took the captain's test, I came out number 3. First guy was promoted immediately because it was a captain's vacancy due to retirement. Second guy got promoted about another 6-7 months on the list because of another retirement. I'm number one on the list with about 7, 8 months to go, and it's going to die. And I'm going, oh man, there's no retirement schedule in the next 6, 7 months. I'm probably have to take the test again, which is not the end of the world. I mean, it's no one likes taking tests, but you usually learn a lot by having to take another test, and you're usually better off for it. I get it. Well, we actually created the 40-hour operations captain position to help support the operations deputy chief, because there was not an operations BC or captain. It was just the deputy chief in operations. But we've been growing by consolidating or contracting with other agencies, and there was the need to support the deputy chief operations to give him at the time some staff support. So the operations captain seemed like a pretty interesting position because, hey, operations is my wheelhouse. Training was not available at the time, but operations, but we already had a guy in there. But he'd done the position for 3 years. And back to let your desire be known, our 40-hour assignments are two-year minimum positions, because I know a lot of people say, hey, I'll do it for 3 months or 6 months or maybe a year, but that's it. I want to go back to the firehouse. I get it. You're barely getting your feet wet at 1 year, if not a year and a half. And that's what most people say. It usually takes about 2 years just to get sort of your feet wet and have a good idea of what you're actually doing. And then it takes maybe a few more years to get actually really good at it. I know everyone's different, but anyway, that's why we have a 2-year minimum, just to make sure you get the full exposure out of it, and consistency too. Well, this position also in operations at the time was a 2-year minimum, but also 2-year maximum. And the guy filling it, great captain, he'd been in there for like 3 years, 3.5 years. And I remember thinking to myself, well, that position is a 2-year max position. And he's doing a great job. I'm not saying he wasn't, but it was, I remember asking the question of the operations deputy chief at the time, saying, hey, when's his time? I thought his time was up, and I'm not trying to be a jerk or not trying to be a jackass, but hey, isn't that a 2-year career development position to be able to, and it was 2-year minimum and maximum, so there could be continuous captains jumping in there to help them prepare for the BC positions and obviously higher up positions too. And the deputy chief of operations at the time goes, well, yeah, he's been in the position for over 2 years, but the reason we haven't kicked him out is because no one wanted it. Which I totally forgotten about it. Remember, he goes, about a year ago when his time was up, we floated the position out there. None of the captains wanted it. So we were like, why are we going to force a captain in when this guy actually is doing a great job and he's enjoying being in there? So he can stay in there. And I'm going, well, okay, let it be known that I'd love to jump into that position, because I think it'd be very helpful. I've been a field shift captain at the firehouse for a number of years. I want to take that step to battalion chief. And I think being a 40-hour operations BC is going to take my knowledge, skills, and experience level to the next level. And the deputy chief, since he knew that at least there'd be an applicant, at least one, he's like, okay, well, we'll float the position. You have to apply for it, and you have to, go through the interview process with him, which, or anybody else, because if other people apply, it's a competitive process. Well, anyway, they opened up the position and I applied. I was the only one, and I got the position. And that was just because I let my desire be known. I showed my cards of, hey, I'd be interested, because he had a good point. He goes, hey, I know it's 2 years maximum, but why would we force someone in that doesn't want to be in when someone's enjoying being in there and they're doing a great job? So I'm not saying the world's going to cave to you, and it's not Burger King where you can have your way all the time, but sometimes by just showing your cards, you never know what you may get, and it may be positive. And now something to think about too, whether it's taking on a 40-hour shift, staff assignment, or managing a program, or assisting with a program or a project, or however you get involved. Before saying no to an assignment, take the time to fully weigh the pros and the cons, because like in our department, a 2-year commitment goes by like that. I mean, it seems like an eternity when you're brand new, like, oh my God, I got to do 2 years. It goes by quickly, and you're going to benefit tremendously from it. So if you have any desire to ever promote to company officer, but especially chief officer, especially executive level chiefs like fire chief, deputy, assistants, demonstrating early on that you're willing to take on, but also capable of handling different assignments, can really pay off tremendously in the long run. Seriously. Plus, back to the 40-hour assignment, it's very common for some fire chiefs during their chiefs interviews to ask that question as part of your interview. Hey, not just how have you prepared for the position? Why do you want the position? The usual standard questions. Hey, if you were ever given the opportunity to work a 40-hour assignment, would you take it? And most candidates, oh yeah, chief, I would take any assignment, hoping it's a shift firehouse assignment. Most candidates say that. Well, there's a reason they're asking that question, because they want to test your your ethics, your integrity. Are you going to bullshit them? One of the best answers I ever heard from one of our guys that lived a couple hours out, he had a 2-hour commute to work. He was asked that question. He told the chief, he goes, Chief, with all due respect, he goes, I commute in 2 hours a day and it's okay on a shift schedule, because if I had to work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, my marriage would be gone, my family would be gone. There's no way, because I can't afford to move closer because we have a high cost of living. He goes, it just ain't going to work. So if that's my promotion, I'm going to have to respectfully turn it down and stay a firefighter. And I mean, hey, appreciate his honesty, because he didn't bullshit the chief. Oh yeah, I'll do that. And he still got promoted. You know, he didn't have to take the assignment on because that assignment didn't come up, but he was honest. That's ethical. That's honest. Versus a friend of mine's a fire chief, and he asked that question in his department. And one guy in his job goes, oh yeah, chief, I'll step onto the assignment. Well, guess what happened about a year into his promotion to being a captain? My buddy calls me up. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, so that guy that said he would do anything would jump on it. He goes, I actually had to give the guy a call and say, hey, by the way, Rick, or whatever the guy's name was. Hey, how you doing, brother? How's you enjoying being a captain? Oh yeah, chief, I'm loving it, blah, blah, blah. Hey, Rick, guess what? I got a 40-hour assignment available in whatever division that he had. And of course, Rick, the captain, chief, well, what are you talking about, chief? Totally forgetting the interview and what he said a year prior. He goes, well, chief, no, I'm happy on truck 1 or whatever assignment he was at. And then my buddy is like, okay, no, this is not I'm not asking you, read between the lines. Basically, I'm directing you. I'm telling you, this is your new assignment effective, 2 weeks from today. And well, chief, that's going to be a hardship on my family. And of course, all the excuses. And my buddy just sort of chilling. And he was like, wait a second. He goes, okay, you know what these are? And the guy was on the phone. I mean, he pulls out a piece of paper. He goes, you know what's on this piece of paper right now? And the guy's like, oh, chief, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, these are the notes that I took from our interview. Remember your interview on whatever, November 5th at 2 p.m. when you were in my office and I was interviewing you for the fire captain position. I asked you all those questions. Why do you want the position? What's your strengths or weaknesses? How are you going to make it better? Blah, blah. Remember, I asked you that, would you work a 40-hour week? And I have written down right here your answer. Yes, chief, put me in there. I'm happy to do it. Well, guess what? This is your new assignment. And then the guy starts backpedaling. Well, chief, hardship and all those things. Okay. And then my buddy's like, so are you lying to me? Did you just basically lie in your interview to get the promotion? You said that just to get the promotion. And now you're changing your mind. That's lying. That's grounds for termination. That's grounds for disciplinary action. And then the guy, I guess, on the other side of the phone was starting to just sort of realize that, you know what? Yeah, he bullshitted the chief and the chief's calling his bluff. Okay. And then finally, basically, so Mike's like, okay, so I'll see you like in 2 weeks, right? Yes. Yeah, no problem. I'll be following up with some more information. Look forward to working with you down here at admin. Enjoy the rest of your shift. Anything you say in an interview, someone's probably writing it down, or even if they're not writing it down, they're remembering it. So don't bullshit people, because it may come back and backfire on you. But more importantly, just be yourself, be honest. And if it is what it is, so ultimately get involved in some capacity and you'll learn a lot. So as always, thank you very much for the gift of your time. And please feel free to connect with me and reach out if I can ever be of assistance. So until the next time, y'all be